My boyfriend, a 24-year-old man, and I, a 22-year-old woman, have been together for almost 4 years. We live together and have 2 cats. It's been the best time of my life, and we've always been happy and very compatible. He's my everything, and I know he feels the same about me. For the past 6 or 7 months, I've been struggling mentally with guilt and relationship obsessive-compulsive disorder. It started with smaller confessions and grew to larger ones from the beginning of our relationship. One of my biggest anxieties is related to work. I started a new job in late October in a sales position. I quickly befriended a guy there, whom we'll refer to as S, a 27-year-old man. He quit in May and came back last week. Initially, it was very innocent, with him helping me get the hang of the new job, being supportive, and offering advice. I was very new, so I often helped pick up items from other stores with him and other people, but mostly him. He joked around often, and I did too. We talked about our relationships and his issues with his girlfriend. He has a child and has been with his girlfriend for years, but they constantly have issues. That was my first major mistake. It's not my business to try to help him. I got too close to him. He had a bad habit of going to the bar with some of our other coworkers before closing. They would come back pretty inebriated. That was fine for a while, but he started getting flirty during that time. He became louder and wanted to talk to me more. He did seem a bit interested in me, as he would talk to me a lot more than to only a couple of other coworkers. I tried to be naive about it for a long time. I don't know why. One time, he returned quite drunk, and we talked again about his relationship. I tried to help and told him that they needed therapy, etc. We also discussed my relationship and our meeting story, which started through a friend on Instagram. I showed him the messages from her, and he took my phone and looked at my Instagram, scrolling through it. I asked for it back, but I wasn't as stern as I should have been. He then went to my photos and looked at them for a bit until he scrolled up and saw a photo of me in the mirror, checking the back of my hair while I was in my underwear. He very briefly saw it from the line of photos. I took my phone back and told my boyfriend about him taking my phone, but not about him seeing the photo until recently. He was uncomfortable and questioned why I let that happen. I should have been clearer about boundaries and taken my phone back from him. That was in January. Around that time, he would also walk out with me when I was leaving. He tried to hug me when we'd leave. It made me uncomfortable. He would attempt full-body hugs, and I'd turn to do a side hug, but it wasn't okay and made me very anxious. I had a conversation with him about it, and he apologized, saying he didn't mean to make me uncomfortable. After that, he would joke about it and make me feel like I was weird for being uncomfortable. But shortly after that, he would do it again. We had 2 more conversations where I told him I'm not a touchy person, which isn't something I'm comfortable with. I have a boyfriend that we talk about very often, and it's odd. He got almost defensive, claiming there's nothing wrong with it and that I'm weird for being uncomfortable because we're just friends. I told my boyfriend about it, and he wasn't happy that I hadn't told him sooner. I then started to try not to be around S as much at work, which was fine. We remained friendly at work, talked and joked, and I let my guard down to an extent, not completely avoiding him, but I was still more distant than I had been before. In April, we went on a drive to deliver a car and pick one up with another coworker. We rode back together, and they stopped at a bar, but I didn't go in. I drove back, and we talked again about relationships and past ones. He asked more prying questions. I forget the exact question, but I remember it led to me saying that my boyfriend had an issue with my past and the frequency of my partners. He asked what my body count was, and I said I wasn't going to tell him, and he dropped it. After that, I was still more distant from him. I recently told my boyfriend about this conversation, and he agreed that I got too close to S and was being too friendly. I agreed, and have been almost completely avoiding him since that conversation, but I've still been very anxious about the whole thing. Another one of my coworkers noticed that S was back and made a comment that S was my best friend. I corrected that statement and said he wasn't my best friend. This was close to when S was around, and he leaned over to say that I didn't hang out with him. I panicked and said I did, but but asked to talk to him later about it. I explained why I didn't want to be close to S again, and that it was a weird situation that I shouldn't have gotten into. One of the things I mentioned to him was that S would call me randomly on the work phones to talk. When I explained this to my boyfriend, he didn't know S was doing that, and he asked how I was unaware of S flirting with me constantly. I told him that I had also called S a couple of times, but my intentions were never to flirt back. However, this caused a major argument with my boyfriend. He thinks I flirted back the whole time and invited it to happen. I would never flirt with anyone other than my boyfriend, but I completely agree that I broke boundaries and regret being as close to S as I had been. I shouldn't have been that close to another man, and it wasn't appropriate to form a friendship like that with someone who is flirty. During this argument, I admitted that I had an initial physical attraction to S, but it didn't mean anything. I felt my boyfriend needed to know everything, but that made things much worse. This was a couple of nights ago, and now he's not sleeping in our room. He doesn't want to talk and has said he's lost all trust in me. To add, I was definitely too friendly and broke boundaries, but I never intended to be flirty or invited any advances. I completely messed up by breaking boundaries, and I'm at a loss on how to fix this. He's saying he thinks we can work through this if he has time, but I'm so scared. I don't want him to think I would ever do that to him, but I don't know how to prove it to him. I know how it sounds and how I'd feel if the roles were reversed. He's the most important thing in my life, and I really don't want to lose him. Now, for a few comments before the update, it's a good idea that you're giving him space. Did you make it clear that nothing happened between you two? Apologizing is one thing, but actions speak louder than words. You're going to need to continue to rebuild trust with your boyfriend. If he can't forgive you, it's time to move on. I honestly would not keep this guy as a friend. Only a coworker and only talk about work when you have to, and that's it. He should have already been fired, to be honest. Now, for the update. I'm still in the spare room. It's been a week since the big fight, and my boyfriend is still sleeping in the spare room. I thought maybe we'd talk it out by now, but Remit. No idiots here. He's still avoiding me like I have the plague. I feel like I'm living in a horror movie where the unalived is just waiting for the right moment to strike. Every time we pass each other in the apartment, I can feel the tension. Not that tension is even a strong enough word. It's like walking through a minefield, and I'm just waiting for the next step to blow my life up. I can't deal with this anymore. I just can't. I decided to reach out to my boyfriend's best friend. I told him everything that had happened, and he was super chill about it, which was a relief. He suggested a group outing to ease the tension, and proposed a dinner at a local Italian restaurant. I was like, yes, please. I'll take any excuse to eat my weight in carbs and pretend my life isn't falling apart. My boyfriend reluctantly agreed to the dinner, but it was clear he was still upset. He was quiet on the way there and didn't even roll his eyes when I told him I was getting extra garlic bread. At dinner, the atmosphere was awkward. I mean, more awkward than trying to explain TikTok to my grandmother. My boyfriend barely engaged in the conversation, just picking at his food and giving me the silent treatment. I noticed he was texting on his phone a lot during the meal. Like, dude, we're at dinner, not a Taylor Swift concert. Put your phone away. After dinner, my boyfriend stepped outside to take a call. I felt a little uneasy. I don't know, maybe it was the 3 glasses of Chianti I'd had, but I couldn't help but eavesdrop. I overheard snippets of the conversation and realized he was talking to his sister about me. Great, just what I needed. My boyfriend comes back looking more frustrated than before. I asked him if everything was okay, and he brushed me off, claiming it was just a random phone call. Sure, buddy, because random phone calls always happen right after dinner with the ex. Days passed, and I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to confront my boyfriend about his behavior. I walked into the living room and said, "We need to talk." He sighed and said, "What now?" He admitted he's been talking to his sister about the situation and that she doesn't trust me. Well, no kidding, Sherlock. I don't trust myself right now. He suggested taking a break to think things through. I don't even know what that means. During this time apart, I started hanging out with coworkers more often. Nothing like a little workplace drama to take your mind off your crumbling relationship. I met up with a group from work at a bar to unwind after a long week of pretending everything was fine. While I was there, I ran into S. As soon as he saw me, he started flirting with me again, which was just what I needed. I was trying to keep my distance, but S wasn't taking the hint. He continued to push boundaries, making jokes about my boyfriend, and all I wanted was a vodka soda and some peace. Feeling uncomfortable, I decided to leave the bar early. As I exited, I bumped into a colleague who expressed concern about S's behavior. She said S had a history of inappropriate interactions with coworkers, and I was shocked. I had no idea this guy was a full-on predator. I decided to report S to HR at work. I filed a complaint detailing his behavior and how it made me feel. HR took the complaint seriously and began an investigation into S. Meanwhile, my boyfriend still hadn't reached out. I was feeling more alone than ever. I attended a family gathering for my cousin's birthday. My parents asked about my boyfriend, and I just shrugged because what else was I supposed to say? After the gathering, I received a message from my boyfriend asking to meet up. We met at a coffee shop, and he seemed more open and willing to talk. Just as the conversation seemed to be turning positive, his sister showed up unexpectedly. She confronted me, accusing me of causing trouble in their family. I was like, "Excuse me, but I didn't cause trouble. Your brother's ex caused this mess." My boyfriend was caught in the middle, looking increasingly uncomfortable. His sister stormed out, hurling insults as she left. I didn't even care at that point. In the aftermath, I received a call from HR informing me that S had been let go. My boyfriend, still processing everything, expressed that he needed more time to figure things out. Edit, my boyfriend and I are now on a break. We haven't ended things yet, and I'm just trying to focus on myself. Am I the idiot for dumping my man-child boyfriend after he was seen with another woman while I was out with friends? I have been with my boyfriend for 5 years, and we have lived together for 4.5 of these years. During this time, my boyfriend was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and previously anxiety. He is now medicated for both. We have had many issues regarding him helping me around the house, which he blamed on his attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It also doesn't help that his mother has babied him his whole life, and he never learned household skills. This has only improved within the last 6 months, but has really impacted my attraction to him. He also never pays attention to me as he has a gaming addiction. We haven't had intimacy in 2 years, as I've felt like his caregiver. Recently, he has had a really bad time at work and is burnt out, but I feel like he is taking his anger, depression, anxiety, or whatever it is out on me. He comes home from work in a mood, sits outside for 30 minutes to an hour vaping, and then comes inside and sulks about how I don't show him any affection or love. I always explain that his lack of help around the house and effort in our relationship. He doesn't take me out on dates or buy me flowers or do anything romantic, has really impacted my desire to have intimacy with him. I tell him I show him love in other ways, like making him his favorite meals, reminding him of appointments, buying him things I think he would like, doing things to make his life easier, and he still sulks. I also still kiss him, cuddle him, and hold his hand. He had a bad day at work the other day and came home and ignored me completely. When I asked what was wrong, he told me he isn't happy with our relationship. However, he then went on to say how his boss yelled at him and has unrealistic expectations. I told him he should look for a new job and showed him available roles. I also encouraged him to speak to a therapist. There have been a few nights where he has come to bed and sulked because I had already been asleep and he wanted to kiss. We sleep with separate blankets because otherwise he hogs them, and he was sulking about how not normal this is. I always feel like whenever he's around, he's sucking the happiness out of me because he's always so miserable. We could have a good day out, and when we come home, he'll be sulking and in a mood because I had to let go of holding his hand for a second. He came to bed last night, and the blanket was exposing his back. I asked him if he wasn't cold and fixed it for him, and he said yes in a sulky tone because I was asleep when he came into bed. It was midnight, and he had been gaming all night. I don't know what to do. or if it's worth waiting around for things to improve. I genuinely feel like I always have to walk on eggshells around him because he is always sulking about something. This has only started since the beginning of this year. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If you could describe how this situation is making you feel in one word, what would it be? Comment 2. Maybe it has something to do with all the lies, cheating, and trauma you caused. Now, for the update. A few days after my boyfriend and I had a fight, we went to his mom's house for a family barbecue. The woman never misses a chance to criticize my boyfriend, so of course, she had some snide remarks about his work situation. Like, hello, lady, he's not happy there, and you're not helping. During the barbecue, she asked why I wasn't helping more around the house and suggested I should be more supportive. I was so close to losing it. I mean, I know I shouldn't have, but I just looked at my boyfriend, and he was laughing awkwardly at his mom's comments, like a kid trying not to get grounded. Never confrontational, you know? Later that night, we got a moment alone on the porch. I suggested we take a weekend trip somewhere to clear our heads, and he just gave me this half-hearted agreement. It was so hard to get any enthusiasm out of him. We went back home, and the sulking resumed. He was upset about the dumbest things, like me not warming up his leftovers when he got home. So I decided to reach out to my friend about everything. I needed to vent. She suggested we have a fun outing to take my mind off things. So we made plans for trivia night and invited a few other friends to join. My boyfriend said he wanted to go at first, but then he backed out, saying he was too tired. Yeah, right? I went anyway, hoping it would help. It did, for a little while. But then I got this text from my boyfriend asking where I was. I told him I was at trivia with friends, and he shot back this passive-aggressive comment about being left to deal with everything alone. Like, dude, you don't even want to deal with anything around here. When I got home that night, he was upset. He confronted me about going out without him, and we ended up in a huge argument. It was like, get ready for takeoff, because we're about to launch into a discussion about how I can't even go out with friends without you losing it. The following weekend, I planned a visit to my parents' house just to get some space. While I was there, I got a message from a mutual friend. She said she saw my boyfriend at a local bar with another woman. I was shocked. She said he was there the night I went to trivia. So I couldn't just ignore that. I decided to confront him when I got home. When I got back, he was in a bad mood, vaping outside like he always does when he's upset. I asked him about the bar visit, and he denied being there. I showed him the text from our friend, and he got all defensive. I was so over it that I said if he couldn't be honest, we were done. He just left the room, and I thought, perfect, some quiet time. A few days later, I got a package at my door, and it was a framed photo of us together, sent by his mother. I took that as a passive-aggressive move, and I was done with that. I packaged up the photo and sent it back to her with a note saying our relationship was over. Like, no more games. My boyfriend came home to find the photo missing and confronted me about it. I just calmly explained that our relationship wasn't working for me anymore. He left the house, and I'm not even sure where he went. Thank you for reading. Edit. My boyfriend returned a few hours later, clearly upset and asking if I was serious about ending things. I confirmed my decision, explaining my reasons. We talked for hours, and he admitted he felt like he was losing me for a while. He agreed to move out. I'm feeling relieved but sad. Am I the idiot for cutting off my best friend after she chose her abusive ex over our friendship? My best friend, who is 20 years old, has a complicated relationship with her ex, who is 21. For context, they dated for about a year since high school and broke up after they both moved abroad. He started living with her in her accommodation, which her father is providing for her during college, and he was living there for free. They broke up due to him being controlling, but since he had no place to go, he continued living with her. They both decided to see other people to move on from each other, but respected boundaries, such as not talking about whom they are seeing or bringing them back to their place. But obviously, it turned very toxic since they both are hung up on each other and live together. They are both basically doing all relationship things, like sleeping together but without commitment. When we became friends in a club, she used to insist that I come back over with her for a while since her ex would go out with his guy friends and she couldn't sit alone and worry about him. She didn't really have any other friends after their breakup, so she started going out herself to take her mind off him. When I came into the picture, the more I saw, the more I realized how horrible this arrangement is. He would be gone all day and wouldn't come back before 5 or 6 in the morning. She would be anxious about what he was doing with other women. She loaned him money from time to time for ridiculous things like shopping, clubbing, food, on top of him living rent-free in her studio, which costs around £2,000 per month. Now, she has a belief that she needs distraction to move on from things. So this one guy who was interested in her reached out, and she started entertaining him but made her intentions clear, though I feel like she kind of led him on a bit from time to time. Now, for the worst part, this guy has a history of love bombing and discarding women and is a pathological liar, which we found out again and again. He was overall toxic. We would meet him at parties, and he would make everyone uncomfortable. Her ex found out about this guy, and he would constantly fight with her almost every single day and be verbally hurtful to the point where she called me crying. Her ex threatens her a lot, and often I have come to her studio to find her things broken. Sometimes he pushes her or holds her very tightly and then apologizes after cooling down. This went on for almost 2 to 3 months when she got tired of the other guy since he was not worth all the drama and toxicity and broke things off with him. But her ex couldn't let go of it and would always say things like, "At least you have someone, I didn't get anyone," and guilt her into setting him up with some girls, knowing she is super uncomfortable. They fought a lot, and he broke many of her belongings. I tried to talk some sense into her all the time, but she just can't leave him. Don't get me wrong, my friend is also a bit toxic, and her cousin, who lives in the same city, never sided with her until one time I came back to my country for vacation. They had a fight because he brought back a girl and cuddled with her in their accommodation, and he got angry and pulled her by her hair in front of her. I got furious at this point and told her to just leave. It's high time. She assured me he wouldn't do it again, and I couldn't win with her. I just gave an ultimatum that next time I would inform her parents, as they are strict and have no idea about anything. Fast forward to today, we were playing an online game with me, her old best friend, and her ex. He wouldn't stop arguing with everyone in chat, and I would argue back. He got mad and left the game in the middle. Her friend then called me and said there's no point in arguing with him or talking any sense into her because she has been doing that for ages. She said that she used to argue with him so much that they stopped talking at one point and recently started talking again. She said she doesn't interfere at all anymore because he would just take all his frustration out on our friend, and she would still keep giving him chances, which is not good for her mental peace, and it's better if I do the same. I strongly agree with her because I have tried talking sense into her countless times and tease her from time to time about how foolish she is for tolerating all this, and she would only admit that she is, in fact, foolish and laugh. She respects me, but also gets annoyed because I am not as tolerant as she is, and I talk back if he makes any absurd remarks and defend her. Now, my problem is that I care a great deal about her, and I personally have some serious anger issues for which I am taking therapy, and it's getting very difficult for me to oversee all this and not do anything. I would appreciate any advice. Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post did not have any comments. Now, for the update. I'm back with an update on my best friend who's in a toxic relationship. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's even worse than before. So, 2 days after my last post, my friend Olivia texted me about this party at our college to celebrate the end of finals. She mentioned that her ex-boyfriend Ethan would be there, and the crazy part was that she seemed excited about it. I felt really worried because Ethan is the last person Olivia should be excited about. I didn't want to leave her alone, so I decided to go to the party and support her, even though I had a bad feeling about it. When I got there, the vibe was just off, like everyone was trying to have a good time, but Ethan's presence made it so uncomfortable. First off, he was drinking a lot, and then he started arguing with other guests. I mean, who goes to a party just to pick fights? Olivia and I were in the kitchen trying to make the best of the evening when I noticed Ethan and Olivia in a corner having a loud argument. It was so bad that people were stopping to look at them. I felt really bad for Olivia, so I walked over to intervene. But then, out of nowhere, Ethan got aggressive with me. He pushed me away and started yelling at Olivia, making a scene in front of everyone. The guy is seriously unhinged. It didn't stop there. I saw him break a nearby table lamp in frustration. Like, who does that? Everyone around was just shocked, and it took a second for me to process what had just happened. The party host, who's a really good friend of ours, asked Ethan to leave, but Olivia stood up for him. I couldn't believe my ears when she insisted he could stay. At this point, I was just done. I didn't know what else to say or do. After the party, Olivia texted me saying she was going to stay with Ethan for a while to talk things through. And there it was, the text that made my heart sink again. The next day, I got a call from Olivia's mom. She was worried after hearing about the party and wanted to know what was going on. I filled her in on Ethan's aggressive behavior, and we both agreed that Olivia needed serious help. It was just so frustrating because we both knew she wouldn't listen to us. Later that week, I was at this local coffee shop when I ran into Ethan. The guy was with some new girl, just laughing and carefree. I couldn't help myself. I confronted him and asked what he was doing with someone new while still claiming to love Olivia. His response? He dismissed me like I was nothing. He said Olivia was too emotional and that he needed space. Space? More like an excuse to cheat. That guy is such a loser. After that, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing, so I decided to visit Olivia at her dorm. When I got there, I found her locked in her room with Ethan. Like, what the heck? I knocked on the door, and after some time, Olivia finally opened it. She looked messy and defensive, which was oddly how she always looked when Ethan was around. I tried to push her to talk about what was happening, but then Ethan jumped in, threatening me to leave. I was over it. I told him to back off, which started a heated argument between him and me. Olivia chose to side with him, telling me she was tired of my interference. I couldn't believe it. This was the guy who was emotionally harassing her, and she was defending him. A few days after that, I got an unexpected text from Olivia saying she had broken up with Ethan. I thought, finally, she's seen the light. But then she revealed that she was moving in with Ethan instead because she needed to support him. I was just done. I couldn't handle any more of this, so I just ignored her for a while. But then came Thanksgiving. I went to a family gathering, and guess who showed up with Olivia? Yup, Ethan. They announced they were back together. During dinner, Ethan made a scene over a minor comment from my brother. It escalated so quickly, causing Olivia to cry and run out of the house, with Ethan following her angrily. I tried to reach out to Olivia after that, but she just blocked me on social media. Like, how mature is that? My final attempt to reconnect ended when she sent me a message saying she chose Ethan over our friendship. It's just so heartbreaking. I've been so frustrated and hurt over what has happened, and I just want to help her get out of this mess. But she just doesn't want to listen, and I don't know what else to do. To answer a few questions, Olivia's parents are aware of her situation, but struggle to intervene due to her adult status and reluctance to listen. The party incident was a turning point, highlighting her inability to recognize Ethan's toxicity. After the party, Olivia insisted on seeing Ethan despite his hurtful behavior towards both her and others. She believes she can change him and often makes excuses for his actions. The confrontation at the coffee shop was fueled by her rejection of any negative comments about him. Currently, Olivia remains with Ethan, and their relationship appears to have resumed its toxic cycle. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.